Welcome to the May 2015 Parent in the Know video blog, The Upside of I'm Bored. Hello, I'm Dr. Lilladale McManus, President and CEO of Parent in the Know, where we do parenting and child social emotional assessment and reporting. Our mission is for you to have an effective and enjoyable parenting experience to support those ever-important positive child outcomes. Here at Parent in the Know, we're research-based. There is a wealth of such knowledge, and I like to bring this to parents and the parenting community through the lens of relevant issues and topics. In this month's blog, I'll be talking about the upside of boredom. Summer is fast approaching, and the phrase, "I'm bored," isn't far behind. This sends many parents into immediate action to provide children suggestions and activities, often at considerable expense. Some parents are proactive and sign-ups for summer camps are already done or in process. We are then quite surprised and likely put out when the situation isn't ameliorated. So what gives? Let's start by defining boredom. There are two sides of the boredom coin, but they may be more similar than it appears on the surface. One is the stance that boredom is highly unpleasant and distressing and is associated with dysfunctional behavior and mental health problems. However, I was inspired by such a group of researchers named Martin Sadlow and Sue, whose recommendations of an effective strategy was one that focuses more on what they term internal causes of boredom, namely an inability to sustain attention, and specifically that, quote, "If we could learn to pay more attention both to ourselves and to our environment, learning to accept and appreciate the present moment, we might have richer lives," end quote. That leads into the other way of thinking about boredom and highlights a common thread. This is that boredom gives our minds the space, time, and impetus to use our imaginations and seize that present moment. Research links being bored to being more creative, and while that is certainly a good thing, I'd like to dig under this a bit. I'm especially intrigued with the idea that affluence, personal freedom, and technology contribute to children and adolescents, and adults too, of course, being bored. So how might parents undermine boredom? Well, our society values being busy, and we certainly have much to do and much to do it with. Extending this, modern parents have been given the message that keeping their child highly and constantly engaged is one of their most important jobs. The problem is this high engagement should actually be more about interpersonal connections and relationships and the subsequent advancements children can make in the physical, cognitive, and social emotional domains, not inundating a child with toys, art supplies, extracurricular activities, and media at the expense of fully and deeply participating in an experience, which, by the way, can be as simple as a meaningful conversation with our children. If we fill up children's time with no room left over for boredom, this can cut the opportunity off at the knees for them to persevere with a task they might initially find boring, to come up with original ways of thinking about how to use on-hand materials, and to engage in imaginative play for younger children and to daydream about possibilities for older children. Passive media, especially television and videos, in addition to reducing opportunity and motivation to invent and pursue pastimes of interest to them as individuals, can restrict children from observing, reflecting, and assimilating experiences due to a constant barrage of incoming novel images and scenarios. So how can we make boredom constructive? Well, all this said, it is important to talk about the need to have an environment that promotes boredom to be used in a constructive way. Just telling children to entertain themselves isn't typically very effective in the long run, with most kids gravitating toward TV. Another usually ineffective strategy is to offer a running list of suggestions. Why don't you paint a picture, build with blocks, play a game, fill in the blank, when a child has come to you with "I'm bored," only to then say, "I don't want to do that," and you're right back where you were. Some of us may buy material items when our child, or we, see something interesting. I have to own up to having done this, as my daughter, as a tween, now has an art bin the size of a small boat to hold what we've collected over the years, much unused, of course. By the way, I do support summer camp experiences. Many parents work and need childcare. Additionally, children can engage in areas that are of interest to them as well as explore new avenues. This piece is about those times, though, when this isn't the case, or when parents feel that tug to get children somewhere just to have something to do because they're bored. So what to do? One of the common threads through boredom leading to deeper thinking and understanding is to spend lots of time with something and in many different ways. Thinking of things that will fit into centers for younger children and projects for older children is one of the most effective ways to tackle this. Two things are important here about your role. One, setting up the physical environment, and two, participating as a facilitator. When setting up the environment, you will want to remember to avoid providing one too close to a finished product to allow your child the space to think, create, and reflect. And let's talk about this second part a bit more. Being a facilitator does not mean you have to run the show. In fact, that can be counterproductive. What it does mean is that you are there to follow your child's lead, and when you see him or her needing support, you're there to explain, show, and then enjoy seeing that success at accomplishing a difficult task. In educational circles, this is called scaffolding and is derived from Vygotsky's social learning theory. Scaffolding occurs when a competent other, such as a parent or a peer, helps the child achieve something they could not otherwise do on their own. Project-based experiences are an excellent format for scaffolding learning. Here are a couple of low-cost examples to give you a flavor. For younger children, setting up a center can be a great jumping-off point. Involve them in putting a center together, both for encouraging this approach and for them to feel a sense of ownership. For example, if your child likes zoos, you can pull together his or her stuffed animals that are wild, grab a bucket and some plastic food, draw trees and habitats on chart paper and place on the wall with a big sign that says zoo. Set up a reading corner with zoo-themed books. And here's a place where media can be appropriate. There are some wonderful zoo webcams from around the world you can access for your center by having a laptop or tablet with internet. If you can add in a trip to the zoo, that's great, but not necessary. But when you do go, use the opportunity to talk about your center and then plan with your child what you might change or add to it. Take some photos to use as a record, and once you return home, print the pictures and talk about them with your child as you incorporate the new ideas. For children in middle to late childhood, a project approach looks a bit different because it has more complex components and may span more time than a center. Keeping with our animal theme, taking up birding is something many older children like to do, and communing with nature is an excellent way to become meditative and mindful. Birding can include building one's own birdhouse, as well as visiting locations in the neighborhood and community to take photos and to journal. Children can grow sunflowers for natural birdseed or make their own bird feeders from materials such as pine cones and suet. Constructing a bird bath from found materials can be a great addition to the project. For indoor activities related to this theme, add in collecting birdsong and putting them together in an audio file for a personal song the child creates, and making and then displaying simple origami or other paper art of bird forms. Just remember, the ideas above are not a list of must-dos, but rather of possibilities. You might think of this method as having some great basic ingredients on hand, with the decision as to what dish will be prepared up to the chef. There are many websites about project-based learning, and even if you see these directed to educators, go ahead and dive in and check them out. I'd like to share some closing thoughts. School has the job of ensuring that all students know essentially the same material and gain the same skills, and they often must do so in the same way. Many teachers work very hard to find ways to keep boredom in school down, but sometimes children do experience boredom without the mental freedom to allow the kind of thinking and expression we've covered here. So when summer comes, children may equate being out of school with a chance to steer as far away from anything that seems like schoolwork as possible. Just remember not to turn these projects and activities into assignments. Instead, give your children some basic starter tools and time, and you may need to set limits on media such as TV, texting, and video games for these time windows to be possible. It may be slow going at first, but guiding children to have the knowledge and confidence that they can create something, and that can be something concrete or a different way of thinking about something. that one alone derives is a very empowering and fulfilling experience for children, and not at all boring. Here are the references used in this piece. Belton, 2001, Television and Imagination, The Influence of the Media on Children's Storytelling, found in Media, Culture, and Society. Belton and Pradharshini, 2007, Boredom and Schooling, A Cross-Disciplinary Exploration, in the Cambridge Journal of Education. Gasper and Middlewood, 2014, Approaching Novel Thoughts, Understanding Why Elation and Boredom Promote Associative Thought More Than Distress and Relaxation, in the Journal of Experimental Social Psychology. Hamlow, Silver, Duncan, and Chen, 2007, Scaffolding and Achievement in Problem-Based and Inquiry Learning, in the Journal Educational Psychologist. Mann and Cadman, Does Being Bored Make Us More Creative?, in the Creativity Research Journal, and Martin, Sadlow, and Stu, The Phenomenon of Boredom, found in Qualitative Research in Psychology. And you can see the blog post link here at parentintheknow.com/upside of I'm Bored. Parent in the Know provides mail-in, research-based parenting role and child social-emotional assessment completed at home by parents who self-report. If you are interested in knowing where you fall on the continuum of parenting wellness, and or if you would like to know how your child is doing with regard to social-emotional wellness, I invite you to learn more and get started at parentintheknow.com. If you are a counselor or parent educator who would like to include assessment in your practice through us, please visit the partner program on our website. Thank you so much for taking the time to view this video blog. We hope you found it informative and that you will share it with others.